Welcome in, everybody. UGA Football live with JC Shelton and former Georgia tight end Arthur Lynch. Artie, I can't remember what episode this is for us. I guess 6. I'm pumped for it. We got another special guest, Artie's former teammate Bacarri Rambo, going to jump off soon. I'm not sure when yet. Told him to come on whenever. We'll roll with him when he gets here. But we have a lot of stuff to talk about today, Artie. A lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of good stuff to talk about, some bad. We'll get straight into it here. Let's start off with here was just first thoughts. Auburn down 127-20, down 10-0 in that first quarter. Let's start with your thoughts after the 10-0. After the 10-0 start by the Tigers, what were you thinking? What were you seeing what Georgia was doing?
Well, we harped on it a lot last week about SEC environments, rivalries, just the point of emphasis that gets put on this game alone. And while I think we predicted, we're also homers here, so we're always going to say the Dogs are going to cover. But I think the way we kind of saw Georgia play in the previous couple games, and then knowing that Auburn was looking for a signature win, I think that we knew deep down that it was going to be a tougher game and a closer game than we were probably saying publicly, right? I was definitely surprised. I was at a wedding, as a matter of fact, and peeking into this kind of sidebar area where they had 2 big TVs going and had them watching the Dogs. The next thing I know, I'm watching the whole game there. So I wasn't necessarily surprised that, and I wouldn't even call it a slow start. I just think Auburn came ready to play. And I think, off camera, you and I, or I guess on camera, but when it wasn't live here just now, we were talking about the importance of the SEC and the cultural significance that is placed on football and college football in the Southeast. And the thing that I think the reason why that is it's so prominent here in the South is because at the end of the day, the best players and the best programs reside in the SEC. And therefore, no matter how bad the teams – what's up, Rambo?
What's up, my guy? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. You're live right now. So just so you know, you're live.
Okay, cool.
What's up, Bacarri? Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Oh, man, sorry for the delay, man. I was cooking.
Oh, you're good. No, you're perfect, dude. We're going to be here for a while, so you're all good, man.
Yeah, you're all good. Right. We're just talking about the Auburn game, and I was just telling him, Rambo, because JC was saying, were you surprised by the start? And I think you can speak to this better than even I can, particularly playing a defensive guy playing in an environment like that. I think when you're up against a rival like that and Auburn in that type of environment, no matter what they're ranked or who may or may not be on the opposing team, and no matter how good or highly ranked that you are, you're always going to get their best shot, right?
Yeah, right.
And I think a perfect example where the roles were reversed is when you guys – I was redshirting that year, but when you guys went down to the Plains and played Cam Newton, and I think you could probably speak to that experience when we went up big. I think we went up 21-3 in the first half, right?
Yeah.
And
it was something like that.
Yeah, so I think if you kind of talked about that, if you could talk about that experience and how that maybe is similar to what Auburn was doing with us, obviously similar to what Auburn did to what we did to Auburn this past weekend. We came back in the second half and won. But I just think talking about the significance of that rivalry and really records and rankings go out the window, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. I get what you're saying. And I look at it as when we played them in 2010, they did a lot of things to shoot themselves in the foot. And once they calmed down and started playing to their system, they started making plays and being themselves. And that's the same thing happened with Georgia. I feel like this weekend by watching the game, we shot ourselves in the foot by costly turnovers in our red zone. And those things turned into points. They was able to capitalize off those points. They capitalized on 14 points off turnovers. Take those 14 points away if we don't turn the ball over. Once we calm down and start playing our brand of ball and playing to our standard, we ran them off the field.
Yeah.
So
No, exactly.
I
Bacarri,
so
my question for you off that, sorry to interrupt you, is yeah, you're perfectly right about shooting in the foot. I feel like that's the only team that can beat Georgia in my mind. When you look at
right.
just college football as a whole, the top guys, what team do we see who's playing championship football right now? None. I mean, there's none, right? I think it's too
Nobody
early in the season.
no nobody is playing complete football, special teams, defense, and offense right now.
No. And
Like
then
nobody.
they do that,
Nobody,
right? And that obviously
nobody in the
hurts them a little
SEC.
bit.
And I think the closest is probably Georgia, to not being biased. Like, if you look at it stat wise, Carson is playing pretty good football, and our defense is playing pretty well, besides the game against Auburn, where we gave up those rushing yards. But hey, I know this for a fact. Kirby got them Sunday or even Saturday, and him and Schumann and Muschamp, they figured out how to stop that because it's a copycat lead. They're going to see that again. Everybody go take their best shot, and everybody saw that Auburn was successful on those counters with the quarterback. So they're going to put it in they're going to put it in their arsenal.
Yeah. No,
So Georgia
exactly
got to
right.
be prepared for it. They got to be prepared for it.
And just speaking off of that, Kirby in his press conference after, and when he's asked about what he thought about that run defense, he said that at first he thought it was really bad. After watching the tape, he didn't think it was as bad because he didn't think that Georgia just got beat with it or more out physical. He said that they didn't line up to what they were shown as well as they should have. So that's kind of a perfect situation right there where I think that it was good at Georgia to see this. Now, Kentucky coming up and O'Leary, he's not a run threat like we saw Peyton Thorne and Robbie Ashford last week. They're not like that, but can we see it down the road with a running quarterback? You know, that really that goes into that game that Arthur was mentioning was Cam Newton and you facing him on the Plains and a running quarterback. And that's one of the things I was going to ask you, Bacarri, is describe the challenges of a running quarterback like that in an offense predicated really on that, getting first downs, right? Extending long drives, eating up the clock, which is everything that we saw against Auburn on Saturday.
It's difficult because it eats up the clock and moves the chain, but it turns the running back from a ball carrier to a blocker, so it's an extra man. It's very difficult. It also can extend plays. Now you got where quarterbacks look like they're running the ball, and a slot corner might come upon them to tackle them. He might dish it out to the slot receiver like a triple option. So it's so difficult, man, and it's just difficult. It's hard. It's kind of hard to slow it down right now, especially if you got a quarterback that can read it. And a perfect example of one of those guys was Nick Marshall. He was like the perfect guy for that system because he had a cannon. He had a cannon. He could run. He could read it. Like he was a perfect quarterback for that system.
Yeah, and you think about who's going to come out of the West right now. I think it's Alabama. I think they're hitting their stride a bit. They have a fire underneath them. Jalen Milroe was benched. That game comes back. I think he looks like a better player to me. And they have that threat with him. So that's something if Georgia makes it, Alabama makes it, SEC championship, Georgia might see some run looks like they saw this past week against Auburn and Alabama. Yeah,
I think
Alabama has to play Auburn.
I think they're going to see it before then. I think they're going to see it against Tennessee.
Very well could be.
You think they'll use Milton as a running quarterback a little
Man,
more?
it really depends on his knee. He does have a knee injury. Josh Heupel won't talk about it. 2 weeks ago, after his 81-yard touchdown run on the first play of the game, he didn't run one more time. Came out of the game with a knee. He was seen at the Tennessee hospital the next day. Heupel was asked about that. He didn't give any details. Said Milton was good to go. So I'm not sure.
Milton's a big dude now. That's a big man.
He's fast now.
When Georgia travel to Knoxville?
November 11th.
Not till November.
You got a whole month, and that's Georgia coming there. Like I'm pretty sure that he's gonna play. He's definitely gonna play.
He's going to play, right? But will they run him like that? It's November 18th, my bad. November 18th. But, you're right, Bacarri. Plenty of time for him to get healthy, obviously.
Yeah, I think so. I think even before then, they're going to see it. I mean, it's going to be a way. Offensive coordinators are smart enough to figure out a way to get it some kind of way packaged in for that to happen.
Yeah.
So Georgia,
let's
I know Georgia gonna be prepared for it though.
yeah.
Rambo, I'm interested in to hear like your thought because like last week we talked a lot about going into hostile environments in the SEC, right? And particularly, you played at a high. You obviously played at a high level in the NFL. Was a playmaker in the NFL for the Bill. I mean, Bills Mafia is probably a little bit different. That's probably a little bit like a college atmosphere, but I think it's hard for some people to really understand how at a place like the SEC in the SEC, there's just talent on every single team, right? There's NFL bodies, NFL players, and so I always try to tell people it's like, man, just because we're playing South Carolina might not be good doesn't mean they don't have playmakers that are going to go play 10 years in the league. And when if you could speak to that, just like any type, like for instance, we're playing Kentucky. Kentucky's obviously pretty good this year, but I mean, I remember my freshman year, your redshirt freshman year, we played Kentucky. Kentucky beat us I think they beat us at home like 28-21 or something.
Yeah,
and,
I was yeah, I remember that game.
Yeah, but just kind of speak like I think they had Randall Cobb on that team. Like, and you're thinking like, who's Randall Cobb? Randall Cobb played 15 years in the league. You know what I mean? And that's when Kentucky wasn't even good.
Playing. He's still
playing. If you could speak to that, just like the level of talent and then how hard it is to play on the road in the SEC.
Man, the talent is crazy, man. It's so many like hidden talent in the SEC, or just like all around the country. But just from what I experienced in the SEC, it was talent like crazy. And then you like, I just remember hearing guys' names, and I just like look them up, just like, man, I played against him. Like,
100%.
He's pretty good. Like, dang, I didn't even know who he was. Like, matter of fact, Josh Norman, we played against him. I think it was Coastal Carolina.
Oh, that's right. In 2011.
Yeah. Yep. And so we didn't even know that. Like, things like that. But he wasn't even in our conference, though. But it just, talent is everywhere. But playing in hostile environments, man, it's crazy. I remember playing, the loudest game I ever played in was in 2009. We was playing Tennessee. And that's when Lane Kiffin was there and Eric Berry.
Yep.
And man, that stadium was so loud, it looked like it was rocking.
And remember when Eric Berry he had that pick six?
Yes.
When so that pick six that he had, Rambo, reminded me of your pick six against Auburn. So
wow.
Last week I was talking about I was just BSing on Twitter, and someone was talking about loud stadiums, whatever, and I was like, these are my top 5 loudest moments in Sanford, and yours to me have that time you got that pick six 2011 against Auburn. It was in the east end zone or south end zone, and you kind of like went over the top almost at the very end.
Yeah,
that was the loudest I'd ever heard Sanford Stadium. But you bring up that Tennessee game with Eric Berry, same exact environment. Like,
man, that thing was loud.
Loud. Joe Cox got his depleted.
Not Joe. Y'all leave Joe out of this, bro. He didn't do anything to deserve this.
They painted Joe that night, man. They brought that pain to Joe that night, man.
Hey, Joe Cox, Alabama. Joe Cox, he worked his way up.
South Carolina was pretty loud too in 2012 when we played them there. When they beat the crap out of us.
Oh yeah.
It was loud there.
Yeah, I that game, you had an unbelievable play. You were like it was like watching Andrew Jones. I think that's a Braves player for you guys. A little throwback, right? A center field.
He's only retired his number this year, but yeah, he's a Braves player.
I called it, and the dude was falling down and like snatched it out my hands. Bro, you know what? Once that happened, I never wore those white gloves again. I threw them gloves away. I said, I'll never wear these gloves again.
That game, that would have changed the dynamic of that game. But
man,
I mean, another perfect example, right? Like, you just think about momentum shifts and when you're on the road, or like, because that, if you go back to that 2011 Auburn game, we couldn't really move the ball, right? We were not throwing the ball that well. Our defense had really been outplaying the offense in that part of the year, particularly in that like part of the season. And then Rambo gets this pick six. It gives us some juice. The stadium's going nuts. Like concrete's falling off the stadium. And next thing you know, Coach Bubba was like, we're not throwing the ball one more time the second half. We're going two tights and a fullback, and we're running the ball with Isaiah. And we ended up running for like 200 yards in the second half or something like that. And we beat him by like 20-something points.
Him and Carlton Thomas.
Yep. CT. There's some throwback names for you. Yeah.
Yeah, man. They was, man. Isaiah, man, he was running, man. I love the way Isaiah used to run that ball, man.
Yeah. What could have been
different. He was different, man. Just imagine having him and Todd Gurley in the backfield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
and then Big too.
And Keith Marshall.
Yeah.
Man, you talking about that's deadly.
Yeah. SEC freshman of the year. What could have been.
That's
deadly,
you
know what?
Man.
He was a good dude, man. I loved Isaiah, right? He
was
a good guy. Got caught up a little bit, but when I say that, like you just talk to him, sit down, you talk to him man to man, awesome guy, man. And
I don't have nothing bad to say about Isaiah. Yeah, he was a cool dude. Yeah, he just
what a talent.
Yeah, I mean he was successful. He was successful with the Browns.
Yeah,
no doubt.
He was carrying that thing with the Browns too, man.
Carl, I want to ask you this question too about going back to that run situation, what we faced against Auburn, and going into a team, Kentucky, who had 280 just from Ray Davis versus Florida. You know, obviously it's not a great setup for Georgia coming off that game versus Auburn with that rush defense playing like this. And as a guy who coached, you know, on Kirby Smart's staff, what do you think that schematically he's talking to these guys about, him and Glenn Schumann and the linebackers, defensive line, all that, the front seven right there, and trying to stop this run and be physical with a team that, you know, they run the ball. Like that's what they need. Leary, he can stand back there and pass when he needs to, but he's not as efficient. What do you think Kirby Smart's telling these guys this week?
You said one word in that whole little statement. The one word that he's going to say is physical. Like, we got to be physical. We going to be physical. We going to play our standard. It's not like he's not really worried about what Kentucky is doing. He worried about what they're doing. So I just really feel like he's going to have them being physical, and he's going to put them in a position. Once you be physical, I'm going to put you in position to make plays. Yeah. So I don't think the run attack against Kentucky, the Kentucky run attack is going to be productive against Georgia.
Yeah.
The only way they're going to have to get it on the outside, but running in them tackles, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah, that edge wasn't as great, but I think you take the QB run out of that. I think, like you said, I'm not seeing Kentucky do quite what they did. And even look back at Davis's stats from the rest of the games. I mean, he was averaging about 70 yards going into that game. So I think it speaks more about Florida than Kentucky in that game. Florida's been out physical this year anyway.
I think they're gonna give them like little dump passes to the outside, let them get out in space, put them on a one-on-one tackle with a DB, see if we can tackle. I think that's just different ways to get him the ball. And once he gets the ball, he's very effective. So they don't always have to be in between tackles. Once they see, like, they know that if they don't know, they'll figure out that, hey, we can't run in between tackles, but we got a good player. We need to get him out of space. They're going to start doing little touch passes to the outside, or they might just do some like RPOs or something, trying to get those linebackers to not bite up on the run as much.
Yeah. And I think they have to. I mean, if you're thinking about Kentucky, you have to establish that run game because Georgia in that secondary is playing like the best in the country beyond, being third in the country in interceptions. And the game sealer from Malachi last week, they've had a couple of times this year where they've sealed the game with picks when teams have to throw to win. I mean, you can't get that run established, and you're going to let Georgia really play up on you. And we've seen this even from a tackling standpoint, like I said, from the DB group. And Kamari Lassiter has been so physical in tackles this year. Tyke
Yeah.
Smith, Malachi Stark speaks for himself. You get it out in space with these guys, you're flirting with fire to me. I think those guys cause turnovers like that, and they really take the receivers out of this game. So I think Georgia defense plays the best that we've seen this week. I really do.
Yeah, I think the matchup isn't well for Kentucky. I don't think it's well at all.
No. And defensively for Kentucky, they do have a good secondary as well. They've played well. And they really, that was a large part of why they beat Florida like they did. They challenged the heck out of those guys to pass the
But
ball.
Florida don't have really good receivers like that, though, in my opinion. No
Mhm.
disrespect. Like, they don't really have no one that's, can beat one-on-one coverage.
Yeah. So who are they gonna? How are they gonna stop Brock Bowers and then Lad McConkey? Let's get into this a little bit, Artie too as well. Let's talk Carson Beck in this game as well because he's not perfect in this game. Missed a possible touchdown to Oscar Delp right down the seam. Interception followed that throw, but clutch is really the key for me out of this game. 6 for 6 on third downs in the second half, 8 of 10 overall. I mean, you think about, and we've talked about at length about playing on the road in the SEC at Jordan-Hare and him coming in, and Artie and I talked about this last week, the crowd noise, the pressure, having to do silent reads and stuff because you can't hear a snap, you can't hear a word anybody's saying. And he goes out and he plays like that in clutch situations and didn't really blink. I watched the tape back as well. Didn't blink in those situations. I mean, knew where he was going with the ball based off the coverage, made the throw. A couple of times he got blitzed right in his face. Georgia didn't even touch the guy, and he threw right at that blitz for 10, 12 yards. That was impressive to me. And he ended up with 23, 33, 318 yards, touchdown. He's second in the SEC in passing yards right now. I think if you're a Georgia fan, you don't like Carson Beck, I don't know what games you're watching right now.
Yeah, I think really, and again, this is it's the reason why I love Georgia fans and the reason why they make me laugh at the same time. It's like you gotta think like for 2 years there was naysayers about Stetson after he won a national championship.
Yeah.
And then like he goes and does it again, and there's still probably people who are like, well, maybe we could have been undefeated 2 years in a row or something like that. Like I think when it comes to the quarterback position, it's just so incredibly difficult to play it and play it well at a high level. And we talked about it a little bit last week. This guy, Carson Beck, like he's been a backup for 3 years, right? That's a long time not to be the guy. It's like it's going to take him some time to become, A, find his own identity, and then B, earn the trust of his teammates, right? There's a certain level of trust you earn in practice. And I think Rambo can speak to this too, because defensive guys, like it takes them a lot for them to start trusting their own quarterback because it's just like that's just the nature of it, right? And it's going to take him some wins like the one he had in Auburn for the team to really be like, oh, this is our guy. And I think you saw that trust get earned from Stetson. By the end of year one with him, where the guys were like, no, this is our dude, right? He's coming here and he's balled out. He's earned it. And I think, and not just the offensive guys, but the defensive guys. And sometimes earning the trust of your defensive teammates as a quarterback is more important than earning the trust of your offensive guys because, if Mike Bobo wants to go for it on 4th and 4 and he trusts his quarterback and the defense can come up to Kirby Smart and say, go for it. We trust him, but if he doesn't get it, we got your back. You know what I mean? And I think that type of bond, if you will, or trust is really earned in the games like they had on Saturday. So obviously not a perfect game. I've never met a quarterback to have a perfect QBR through an entire season. I'm sure whoever becomes that first quarterback will be whatever. But Caleb Williams almost threw the game away for USC, and he threw 7 touchdowns against Buffalo or Colorado the other day. So I think for Carson Beck, it was a huge opportunity for him to go out and earn the trust of his teammates, and he did just that. But I don't know what you saw, Rambo. I mean, obviously, we could speak as much as we want about Brock Bowers. I think it's understood what kind of dude that is. He's a killer, right? He's like the AJ Greens. He's like the Julio Jones. He's like the Todd Gurley. He's the gamer. He's a killer. But I think, I was always fascinated with like the trust dynamic of like defensive players and their offensive players. So I don't know if Rambo, if you want to take that and talk about that trust that defensive guys may or may not have in their offensive teammates. Because I know you've probably been on teams where you don't trust the quarterback, and you and your guys probably won't say it out loud, but are probably like, man, we're going to have to pick up the slack here for the offense, right?
I mean, I feel like it was more of just the trust of I knew Artie was going to do his job. I knew Aaron was going to do his job. I knew Jarvis was going to do his job. I knew David Andrews and Todd and TKs and Malcolms and Marlins and whoever. I knew everybody was going to do their job. I trusted y'all was going to do your job. So if Murray knew he was going to have a bad day, if Murray was having a bad day, he trusted that we was going to do our job to shut down on third and have a good third down, or to get turnovers, to win in the turnover margin, to get him a scoring defense, you know. And I just think it's more just trusting us to do our job. Like, that's basically what it is.
And I want to shout out Bacarri right now as well. Bacarri, you came on this show a couple months ago, maybe more than that. It has to be more than that now. And we talked about, your experience with Kirby Smart on that staff. And I asked you a question that pertained to Javon Bullard moving from the star position to strong. And you gave me the answer that he wouldn't have any issues moving back to safety. And because the star and the strong right there work so closely together. And I feel like that has come to pass. You called that completely. I think he's had no issues. He's been really good. He came back from his ankle injury this past week, had 9 tackles, I think. So I want to give you a quick shout out on that. You called it right, man.
I might know a little something, man. I don't know. I think I think a little bird flew over and told me that, man. I don't know. I might know a little something.
Yeah,
Man, he's been balling, man. He's been balling. He's been having a good year, and I'm glad to see him come back off his ankle injury, and hope he continues to get healthy and continue to work hard and do business, do his job.
He does podcasts with the Players Lounge, which I'm editor for now each week, and I get to hear him talk a lot. He's a good dude. He's smart too.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be good in the league as well.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm gonna love to watch him at the next level.
Yeah, and when you think about that secondary too, guys like Kamari Lassiter is playing really well, Malachi, Tyke Smith, and Javon. It's lockdown. If those guys can stay healthy, they're going to give quarterbacks and receivers fits all year. Front seven, I think, that's where we've seen a little bit different than the last 2 years. But of course, NFL draft picks and what have you and transfers, these guys have to get used to playing with each other. Let's move on to a couple of things here. I think Lad McConkey, I want to note him. He had 3 catches that were first downs, and he's been out with a back injury he didn't play any snaps this season until Auburn. He was on a snap count, but when Carson needed him most, he was there and for first downs. How big is that security blanket for you guys to have like that in a receiver? Bacarri, you defended them. Those guys have a knack for getting open on third downs, or the relationship you have with Carson or a quarterback here, and Artie as a guy who's been that security blanket at times yourself. What goes into that, and were you impressed with how Lad was able to get started, get on the field, and just contribute right away?
You want to go, Rambo, or?
No, you go ahead. It's about offense, man. I don't know about that side of the ball.
Yeah, I think when you think about a guy that's just like that you you can go to in those like key situations in the NFL when it's like third and so we say you got to have it, right? Like third and got to have it. It's like when you got a guy that's just money and Lad, I think it allows the entire offense to go into that third down situation with a sense of like confidence and calmness that is really hard to obtain as an offensive unit, right? I think ultimately, right, when you think about some of the really, really, really great slot receivers that have played at Georgia, you really got to put Lad McConkey on the top of that list because of his ability to make plays in clutch situations, right? And like obviously, like the stereotypical comparisons are going to be like the Julian Edelmans of the world, right? But if you look back on Brady's career, or even before Julian Edelman, this is a throwback, but a guy's name is Troy Brown. Like you think about those slot receivers in the NFL that have done it for so long and for so many years. It really comes down to their ability to make the tough catch when it matters the most, right? It might not be like the sexy like go route that where Jefferson and Jamar Chase just blow by people, right? This might be that kind of like mesh route where they got to sit over the center and just get popped as soon as they catch the ball. But at the end of the day, they make the play. And when you have a guy that's going to be able to make the play in a tough spot, and they might, catch one in the chin as soon as they catch it, that instills confidence in your quarterback, which instills confidence in your offense, which instills confidence in the entire team. So as they nurse him back to full strength, and I think they've done a really good job of kind of like putting him on a pitch count, so to speak, when he's up and running, going full speed, probably by midseason, if not midseason, by this week coming up, I think he's going to add an entire different kind of aspect to our offense or component to our offense. And it's only going to help accelerate and build that confidence in Carson Beck, because he's going to be like, shit, man, I got a dude that I can always go to. Or if a blitz is coming and I got to get rid of this thing and he's hot and I can hit him and it's 3rd and 2, I think that's what's going to be most important about the addition of Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that he comes in and provides a few big plays and Brock Bowers goes completely off. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that those two feed off each other. Most of the time, they're on the same side of the field. If you watch the tape as well, they love putting Ladd out wide and then Bowers right there in the slot or in tight. So I love what we saw from him, and I don't think we knew what we were missing until this past game with those 3rd downs. That's another reason I think we were so efficient on 3rd down. So, and Kirby Smart, for those listening at home, Kirby Smart updated Ladd McConkey, said he recovered well. He's feeling good. It's just about getting that conditioning, that on the field conditioning that he needs to play a full game. So that's on the way. It's on the way. Let's get into UK, guys. I want to start it out with playing at night right here. Night game in Sanford. Take me through your routines as a player. I've already heard Artie's at times. Artie likes a 3:30 slot the best. Bacarri, what's your favorite game time?
3:30, man. Because I don't like to sit at. I didn't like to sit at Lake Lanier all day. Because we used to have to drive to Lake Lanier. Was it Lake Lanier?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we used to have to drive to Lake Lanier and stay out there. So 12 o'clock we used to leave probably around 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock to head back to the butts to get ready for a game at 3:30. Them 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock games, man, they way too early. No, that's 12 o'clock. You have to get up like 6 o'clock in the morning. Nah, I like the 3:30s, and at 7 o'clock you be there all day with nothing to do. Just sitting there on the balcony looking at the birds and stuff.
Hey, Rambo, give us some insight to your old pregame routine besides getting a lineup for me, because I know because you gotta let people know that I was lining people up back in the day.
Hey man, Artie used to cut our hair, man. Artie used
No
to
way.
man.
What?
Artie, this isn't the Artie, man. Artie is a clone. This is a clone Artie. The Artie back in the day used to walk around with baggy jeans, Air Force Ones, a fade, in a basketball jersey.
Oh, I still got the basketball jerseys.
Isn't that Massachusetts stuff right there, though?
Hey, and in the summer, I still get the fade too. Don't let people fool you, Rambo.
Oh, I do too.
Artie used to come, man. Artie was so clutch, man. We used to just get cuts in the dorm room.
Yeah, but the problem is Rambo would go. I'd cut Rambo's hair, and then he'd go and tell everybody. And next thing I know, I had a line outside my outside my.
I was bringing clientele, bro.
Yeah, and I'm like, and people were like, "Hey, can I get a cut?" I'm like, I was like, I gotta go to bed. And then they'd come knock on the door for curfew, and I'd have about 2 other guys just sitting on my toilet waiting to get cut. And poor Murray would be just sitting there talking to whatever girlfriend he had at the time. He'd be like, "When these guys get out of the room, I got to study some film." And I'm like, "I got to cut their hair, man. I can't push them away." You know what I mean? But Rambo was the first customer.
Yeah.
Wow.
Rambo, and he wasn't even my roommate.
I'm glad I could bring y'all back together like this. This is very sweet. Very sweet.
Yeah,
What do y'all think? What do y'all think about them having their own barbers now in the facility?
Man, that's crazy. I wish we'd have had our own. Well, I had Artie. Artie probably be the first barber / football player. UGA history hitter, left practice and then came in there and cut hair.
Yeah, but with Rambo would have been raking in the NIL money, so I would have actually charged him some real cash. You better put me on retainer.
There you
Man, yeah, I would have had to do that. I'd have did that for you, my dog.
Yeah, no, I think I just think about how different things are today. Particularly, like I know Coach Rick, he made a joke today, I guess, in the press conference about the AJ Green and Todd Gurley jersey autographs thing, and you just think about how things. I mean, I know it's been a while since we played there, but you just think about the dynamic of college football and how different it was. You probably saw a little bit up close when you were coaching Rambo, but it's pretty remarkable to me how much has changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, I'm happy for that, man, and I think it's still a lot to be done with the game. I think they still growing. I think they are really looking out for the student athletes now. Hopefully they start getting things done with just the regular students as well. Start showing them some love too with these student loans and what's not.
Oh yeah,
But
for sure.
but yeah, man, it's changed a lot, man. But yeah, that's all I really gotta say. I just hope everybody get a piece of the pie. Everybody
No doubt.
deserves it.
Yeah, throw some my way. Kentucky. So we got 7 o'clock kick. You know, we talked about our pregame routines there. I got to use you guys. What is your favorite pregame tradition? When is that? You know, because for me, I always had butterflies in my stomach when the national anthem hit. But there's so many other great traditions at Sanford Stadium, and you could name them. There's so many. But what was it for you guys? You know, calling the dogs, Krypton, what have you? What was that moment that you felt, all right, it's game time, let's go?
What's the name of the guy? Phil Collins?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the air tonight. I could feel it
Yeah.
in the air tonight. When they played that, I knew it was game time.
Yeah. I got to admit, when I could feel in the air night, is it Bob O'Reilly, the Who?
Yeah.
When that goes on, there's a different, it's almost like that. You know, we were talking about Mike Tyson before this, and that kind of switch. You just go from like being your normal self to like, oh, I'm locked in on a different level. You know what I mean?
I think too was with Grantham, man. When Grantham came, Grantham changed our whole attitude. Because I know some offense, it might have been you as one of the offensive players that used to come over there and listen to Grantham talk during pregame.
Oh yeah,
bro. Grantham used to get out there, man.
So like you gotta to put some context in there, and like I say this with a heart full of love. I love Coach Rick, no matter what. But man, he's a God-fearing individual, right? He does not cuss. He's like, and I'm like this kid from the north. I'm like, I need to be mother effed to like get me going. You know what I mean? And Grantham comes in. I think Bobo was just like very like young offensive coordinator from Georgia, kind of probably looked up to Coach Rick a little bit. It's like Coach Bobo is very much like Coach Smart. Like he likes to mother F people, you know what I mean? Yeah. Grantham comes in, gets the big contract, and like kind of can do like he's like lighting the fire under Rambo's ass. He's lighting the fire under Jarvis's ass. He's lighting the fire under Cornelius' ass. And he's dropping bombs to everybody. And so I would just be like, I'd come over there and just sit in the back and listen to this guy go off. And I'm like, I need to have what he's having tonight.
Wait, was he cussing out the other team, or was he cussing out y'all?
Everybody. Nobody was saying
everybody. He cussing at I don't know who he's cussing. And he's breaking like overhead projectors and stuff.
Everything.
Like, bro, I remember one game we had got a 3 and out. We run into the sideline and he went to the ball boy for our opponents and he was like, yeah, run that MF again. And the ball boy is like, bro, I ain't even like, I don't got nothing to do with the coaching staff. And he was like cussing at the ball boy on our side. That's what I knew. I was like, Grantham is like, he one of the boys, man. I like Grantham.
I used to go up to Grantham in the middle of the game, like if the defense let up like if the defense let up a first down or something, I just go up to Grantham. I'm like, Grantham, are we just not tackling anybody today? Just to fire him up, you know what I mean? Because like I knew that at some point in the game he was breaking a clip or a whiteboard, or he was. I mean, and he would like get in it with Coach Rick. He'd get in it with like the position coaches, and the best was in practice. I was on scout team my redshirt year, and if like I caught a pass or Michael Bennett caught a pass or like whatever, like he would just sit there and just tear into like all these future NFL Pro Bowlers, right? Whether it be Rambo, whether it be Houston, Justin Houston, Jarvis, I mean, you name it. You're just like, this guy does not give a flying, you know what. And the thing I love the most about it is when he came in, it heightened Bobo's level of like passion and competition. So they would just, MF each other. And
they'll go at each other.
I think it honestly just kind of like, it raised a level of competition, which is why I do love Kirby Smart. Like just kind of watching his like speak, because like you could tell they got fires in their bellies, man, and that's how it's supposed to be played.
That's my point to go off what you just said, because think about, all right, so you had Todd Grantham, you guys had Todd Grantham as your guy, right? And now you have Kirby Smart, Will Muschamp.
Yeah, Muschamp's out of his mind.
How many, dude, that boy, y'all remember those CBS network clips of him on the sideline as a Florida Gator, just red, cussing people out. You have them two on defense, and you got Mike Bobo on offense.
Man, when we get done this podcast, I know somebody got some videos of Muschamp on the sideline. I'm gonna go check them out because boy, those things are so funny, man.
Yeah.
Because the only thing be moving is like his little hair right here and his little cheeks. He just be woo.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would have been able to. I would have took it pretty well because I felt like I was coachable. And my dad was like that as a coach on me. Like it was times in high school where I had to apologize to my dad after the game because me and him cussed each other out. And I wanted to go borrow his truck, so I had to go apologize. But
you go kiss the ring.
Yeah, man. But some kids, if you aren't made for that, if you ain't come from that, I don't see how you'll be able to take it.
No, there's one.
They bring it at practice.
Yeah, there's one defensive tackle who now plays for USC that I don't think could take it, and that's from,
he said they promised him something, they lied to him or something like that. Man, one thing about Kirby, you gonna have to earn your spot each and every day.
Mm-hmm. Trey Scott is especially, even all those coaches the same way. You have to earn it, right?
You got to earn your spot each and every day.
I think it's a great time to hit some Georgia Kentucky predictions right now, and we'll get into some history class with Artie Lynch a bit later. Bacarri, I want to give you opportunity to get your predictions in. If you got to jump out, I understand.
All right, let me see.
Yeah, a score prediction. I'll tell you right now, the line is 14.5, Georgia. Let me get the over-under. Yeah, 14.5 still. It moved from 17, right? 48.5 is the total.
48 is the total?
48.5.
I'm looking up these games real quick.
I want to say under. I think Georgia 31-17.
31-17.
That's 14 points. That's 48. But
I like it.
I also want to say Like, man, just going this gambling crap, man, these spreads. Sometimes you sit there and watch them games and you think, man, them jokers know something, bro.
Oh yeah.
They know something. Like,
Yeah.
how in the world? Like, how in the world?
Yeah, Sean
But
McVay kicked a field goal for no reason the other day when time was running out. So,
yeah,
yeah, the other team covered. And then Patty Mahomes just this past week slid down
just
when he could have
yeah,
scored.
exactly. Like they know something. But I don't want to disrespect Georgia and say 17. I don't think Kentucky scored 17 points. So I'm gonna say 31-9. I get on 3 field goals.
31-9. Hey, that's a good one.
31-9.
I like it. We hadn't heard that one on here at 9. I like it. Field goals.
31-9.
Keeps him out of the end
Yeah.
zone. I think Georgia's defense plays well. Not gonna lie. I'm with you.
Yeah, I think
Bacarri.
we match up pretty well. I think we're gonna match up pretty well.
Yeah.
They might get a big play. They're gonna make a big play, but then Georgia's gonna calm down and we're gonna be able to adjust and go make things happen. So it's gonna be 31-9 or 31-10. If they capitalize off this big play they make, then it's gonna be 10. But if they don't, they kick a field goal, it's gonna be 9.
I like it. Lock it
Watch,
in.
watch,
Lock it in.
watch
Bacarri
this.
Rambo. He calls
Watch
stuff on the
this.
show now. He calls stuff on the
Watch
show.
this.
Artie, before you get into yours, I want to say one thing about this game too. Doesn't it feel like this matchup is the same each year? It's like we hear about Kentucky's O-line, the ground game, the defense is physical, their physical brand of football. And then Georgia controls the game. They win by a couple of scores at worst. You know, Georgia won 16-6 last year in a really cold game. It was like 14 degrees, 30-13 the year prior. You know, Kentucky was about at this level. I think they're a little bit better this year, just from how they've played teams. But it's kind of the same story each year. But, you know, they always want to mention the media, especially, you know, this team is built kind of like a Georgia. You know, they're built on that brand of football. But Georgia has the upper hand each year. I think it's going to remain the same this year. Go ahead, Artie.
Part of me thinks that Georgia's about to roll. I mean, I know I've been saying that the past couple of weeks, and that like we really haven't had our coming out party. But for whatever reason, I mean, for many reasons, I should say, not whatever reason, but I think Kirby just kind of has Kentucky's number a little bit. You know, Kentucky's had put together some really good teams in the past couple of years, but every time they meet Georgia, they seem to meet their match a little bit. Obviously, it's not every year for the past 20, but it just kind of seems like that's the way this thing goes. I think it's going to be like a 28-3 game. I think it'll probably be like 14-3 in the first half, and then we probably pull away in the second half. But I don't think they score that much. Their offense has not, in the past couple of years, not been able to move the ball as well as they probably would have liked against our defenses. I think that remains consistent this year. But yeah, so give me like 28-3.
28-3. Lock it in as well, Artie. Artie's been pretty good with those as well. You know, I like kind of in the same score bracket as you guys. We'll go 30. We'll go 30-13. A little bit more points than Bacarri there. Probably the reasons I've already said. I think Georgia rolls as well here, especially the defense just plays out. That secondary is just too much. It's too much once you get down to really come back. And with Carson's playing the way he's playing, you have to do so much on offense, I think, to keep him off the field. I don't think that happens. Bacarri, I really appreciate you jumping on, man.
The key for Kentucky, they got to start a third and long because Georgia's got too many athletes. And third down, third and long, man, that's their chance to put those boys that they don't have much to think about. They only have like 4 or 5 plays. Like, you know, these 4 or 5 plays, and you go get these plays probably 8 times a game. You go get in there and you go. It's just too many athletes to sit there and try to play with Georgia head on. So Kentucky, I just think don't get in third and long. That's when Georgia go put their best players on the field and they go get after it.
Yeah, we need to see that pass rush step up a little bit, and I think we'll see it as well here this week. Bacar, we're going to get into some other things around college football. Hang with us if you want, but we're going to get into it a little bit. Arthur Lynch, history class with Artie. Been doing this. Arthur Lynch is a history major and a barber and a former football player. So he does this history thing for us each week around college football. We love college football. It's a pageantry, it's the history, and we'll throw it to you, Artie, for this week's history class.
Yeah, Rambo, bear with me. I'm going to put you through a little class right now if you stay on. But what I was thinking about this off season a little bit, there was a rumor, I don't know if it was actually reported on, but that Jim Harbaugh has a period in practice, or they had a beat Georgia period in practice, and obviously that we wiped the floor with Michigan a couple years ago in the playoff. I thought we were going to have a rematch with them this past year, but they failed to meet the moment against TCU. But say what you want about the guy and his quirkiness, he is a very good football coach. And it was this week, 16 years ago, when first-year head coach Jim Harbaugh took down number one USC, Pete Carroll-led USC, 24-23 in the Coliseum when he was at Stanford. And for people that really don't know, I mean, I guess in the past couple of years, Stanford has been down, but Harbaugh really reintroduced Stanford to the college football world. They were just basically the nerds of the West and the doormats of college football in the Pac-12 for a long, long time. Harbaugh went there for 4 years. His last year, they won a Rose Bowl with Andrew Luck. Obviously, David Shaw took over for Jim Harbaugh and really had about 10 years of really high-level success, right? We're talking dudes like Christian McCaffrey, Colby Fleener at tight end, Zach Ertz at tight end, obviously Andrew Luck at quarterback, Breece Hall's on the running back, who's now with the Jets. I mean, some really, really, really good players at a high level, but it really all started with Jim Harbaugh, right? His career is ascended, but it really, if you look back on it, kind of what was the pivotal moment for him as a coach was in 2007, Stanford. I think they were 1-10 the year before. It goes into the Coliseum on October 6th, night game against Pete Carroll, against USC, number one in the country, and upsets them 24-23. And he did it with, I learned this today, with his backup quarterback named Tavita Pritchard, who
Never heard of her.
Never heard of him. It wasn't Andrew Luck, but for those people who are interested, he's now the quarterbacks coach for the Washington Commanders. So he's still in the football game. But as always, I like to kind of bring things back, try to tie it to Georgia, but obviously it really, I mean, at least for me, it was a moment in college football. I was a junior in high school, and in those images of the decade that ESPN used to do, there was, for that 2010s, they would always shoot it back to, or the 2000s, they would always shoot it back to Harbaugh kind of going nuts and getting washed the Gatorade when in the Stanford gear. So that's your little history class for today. 2007, Jim Harbaugh and the Stanford Cardinal beat Pete Carroll and USC Trojans 24-23 in the Coliseum, October 6, 2007.
I love it. I love it. And Jim Harbaugh does have a beat Georgia period in practice. I think that was announced this spring that came out, which is pretty interesting. They're going to have to beat a really tough gauntlet of physical teams here in Penn State and Ohio State. Yeah. Anyway, let's get into a little bit of USC, actually. Let's right off that note. USC, we talked about last week, Artie and I, the defense for USC. Carl, I don't know if you've watched any of USC this year. Obviously, Caleb Williams, the Heisman winner, that offense, Lincoln Riley, plenty of weapons at receiver position around. Those guys can run up the score on most people. Almost let, that we've learned, a bad Colorado team come back. And they were down 27, I think, was the mark, 27 or 21. Came back and won by a touchdown, 48-41. Talked about that last week. I was like, the defenses, right? The defenses in these top teams, when they play a team like this in USC, they almost allowed the same thing happen to Arizona State the week prior. So I think USC is overrated in that aspect right now. We have to keep in mind the defense in the second half. They get worn out, and by the second half, that pass rush is gone. They have good pass rush stats. That pass rush is gone. Their secondary can't keep up when those teams decide, okay, we're passing for the win. So I just think it's something to watch out for when we talk about this college football playoff projections. Oregon State, the Fighting Beavers, That's Arthur's favorite team, actually, in orange and black this year. 21-7 over Utah, number 10 ranked Utah. Utah doesn't have Cam Rising. They had him in this game. I think they win. The quarterback play is just not good. So that's the top 10 team that's out. And then you have Texas has no problems with Kansas, 40-14. I
was
Texas.
surprised by that.
Dude, we didn't know how good Kansas was. I think the media and the rankings as well kind of went off of last year a bit, and that Cinderella run they made. It seemed like it to me. I think Texas is going to beat Oklahoma this week. I think they're one of the best teams in the country from what we've seen. At least we saw them play somebody at Alabama. They play another good team in Oklahoma this week.
I think Oklahoma might run away. I think Oklahoma might sneak this one.
Oh, really?
Interesting. I like that.
What do you think? Do you think offense, or do they do enough on defense to stop Quinn Ewers?
I think they do enough on defense.
I can see that. I mean, nobody's really challenged Texas like that on defense yet. I mean, Quinn Ewers has been so efficient. His release is so quick. It's hard to defend that, I feel like. I mean, pocket presence.
What's his name from what's the dude name? The quarterback from Oklahoma? Gabriel?
Yeah, Dylan Gabriel. He's been good this year.
He's been really good. He's been really, really good.
The thing about Oklahoma is they haven't played a team to the level of, let's say, Texas and Alabama when they played. We got at least, I know Alabama's a bit down right now. At least we got a good idea of what they could do against a better team full of talent. Gabriel's played well. Like, what can they do? It's at Texas too, but it is a noon game, so that's gonna, allow people to not be as liquid encouraged for this game. So maybe
I never understood why they put that game at noon. That's like a waste of a college football game.
Kind of is.
Anyway,
isn't it noon our time?
Yeah.
Noon our time, but it's like 11 there, right? Or
it's a noon game for sure.
Yeah.
They do it all on Eastern time. But it's gonna be a great game. So we get to watch that at noon, right? That's gonna be a noon game. And then while we're on that topic, we got that at noon. We got Maryland at Ohio State. Maryland's playing well. Tua's younger brother slinging it, right? That's at noon.
Who they playing?
Maryland at Ohio State.
They have a 20-point spread on that too.
Yes.
I think it's gonna be a close game.
Nah, I think it won't be 20 points. I'll take Maryland with the point spread, but I think Ohio State will pull it off.
Yeah, I'm with you on there. But 20 points, Maryland looks good. And that coach, Maryland's coach, I forgot his name. He was the OC for
Alabama.
Yeah, for a bit. I mean, he's keeping some serious talent. That like Baltimore, DC talent. He's not keeping all of it, but there's a lot of ball players in that area of the country. And he's keeping some guys home. So they got some dudes, man.
Are you saying that because that's from your area?
No, Rambo, I'm from Massachusetts, man. Maryland's like 8 hours south, man.
He's from the N1 shorts and
that's because Rambo, you're from South Georgia, man. That's like South Georgia is deep south compared to Atlanta. You know what I mean?
Well, kind of. It depends on where you go. I'm not gonna lie though. Some places.
Seminole County. Am I wrong? Seminole County.
Yeah, it is deep south. It's deep south compared to Atlanta. You're right about that.
There's some Atlanta suburbs that are country too.
And to put that in perspective, Maryland is the deep south to Massachusetts. You know what I mean?
All right, your deep south Terps come into Ohio State and cover the spread.
They're covering the spread. I like Tua's brother in there.
Oh yeah, he's playing well now. Watch him out for the NFL draft as well. We'll see if something happens. At LSU at Missouri. And if you're a Georgia fan, you should be watching this game at noon as well. Get you the quad box up. All right. Get you Red River rivalry at noon. We'll get Ohio State, Maryland, and you can get LSU, Missouri right there. Because this Missouri team is tough. Brady Cook's playing well on offense for Missouri. We know that defense is tough. They play tough. Feels like every game they played Georgia tough last year. It's at Missouri. And you got an LSU team. Guys, y'all can talk about this. Coming off of a heartbreaking upset when the other team stormed the field, right? You play a high-scoring game. You're tired. injuries, what have you, and you have to go play a tough team on the road like that in Missouri. I mean, I don't know. I feel like Missouri's got a little upper hand here.
I think for most teams, it could be a letdown, but LSU is like, apologizes to offends anyone, but like LSU's is almost like they're bipolar. It's like the past 2 years they'll play like they'll play that Tennessee game last year and get blown out, and then 2 weeks later come around and beat Alabama. It's like I don't really quite understand that dynamic or what's going on with Brian Kelly, because usually they're pretty well coached teams under him, whether you like them, hate them, indifferent. Yeah. But I could see them coming around and beating them by 30 just because they had that letdown last week. But I don't know. What do you think, Rambo?
Yeah. What you like?
I don't think. What's the point spread?
Yeah, I'm looking it up for you right now.
6.5.
There you go, Artie.
Over under points is 64.5 for over under on points. LSU is -6.5.
Yeah.
I'll take LSU 6.5.
You like them? You like them on the road? Yeah, I mean they are bipolar, right? So they would follow if they're kind of going what Artie says. If they go off of what you're saying, they're going to play great. I'd tell you that FSU win over LSU looks worse and worse. It really does. They were high off of that.
I don't believe in FSU.
I'm glad because I got a lot of friends from down south. You know, my hometown is on the border of Florida and Alabama, so a lot of my friends and some of my family are Florida State fans. So I'm glad that's having to make Florida State look worse and worse.
Yeah, it's going to be tough in that ACC at the end, I believe. I mean, Miami's looking good. You got North Carolina, Duke. Duke just lost. North Carolina's still undefeated. Clemson's going to give people games every week. They're tough. Go ahead.
Do they play Florida State this year, Clemson?
They already did. Remember it was that game went to overtime a couple
weeks
ago?
Yeah. That's
so
right.
They had it. They really outplayed them for almost 4 quarters. And then really bad turnover and a mixed field goal. But that's football, right? That's football. Bama at A&M, 3:30.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, if A&M had Connor Weigman, their quarterback who was playing so well, if he wasn't out for the season, I would say Bama's on upset watch, but Jimbo Fisher's done it before, right? Jimbo's the fighting
Johnson is playing pretty well.
Yeah, he did come in well. He
played pretty well last game. Who they played? A&M. Who they played last week? Arkansas. He played Arkansas. He played pretty well last week.
Yeah. Well, Arkansas isn't much home to write about, but like I see what you're saying. He did look comfortable. Can he do it in his first start of the season like this?
A&M's got some dudes, man. At the end of the day, they got some dudes.
They just you talking about bipolar? That's A&M too.
Yeah.
Bipolar. But yeah, so that's gonna be 3:30 CBS. Arkansas at Ole Miss 7:30.
I think Alabama go put it on them though.
Yeah, I like Bama out of the West. You right now, from what you've seen, what ended on this? From what you guys have seen from these teams so far in the SEC, I was asked this earlier on a radio hit. Team out of the West, team out of the East. You know, I can't not put Georgia. I think there's a gap there in the East. In the West, obviously Alabama and LSU being down a bit has really thrown everything for a loop. I think Bama, we've talked about it earlier. I think Bama is going to play their best ball here moving forward, really. Expect them to get the win this week as well, LSU, Auburn. I think it's Alabama, Georgia, and the SEC championship. I think Alabama is going to cause some big problems for that Georgia defense if they can run the ball with a QB like that, Milroe, and Georgia doesn't get that cleaned up. Who are you guys picking here for the SEC championship before we get out?
Oh, God. I tell you what, if A&M beats Bama this weekend, I like A&M to run the table, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I think they're probably the second most talented team in the West. I just don't trust them to finish out the season, even if they did beat Bama. So I'm with you. I'll take Bama versus Georgia in the SEC championship game. I don't know. Right now, the way both teams are playing, probably a toss-up. but I'd probably give it to Georgia because their quarterback seems to be more consistent than Milroe. But
Yeah.
I think those two teams are the most talented, but probably both are not playing their best football yet, if that makes sense.
And you don't have to play your best yet. So that's why we like to talk about it. But Alabama, A&M, right? Then A&M goes to Tennessee. They got South Carolina at home, and we know what South Carolina can do in the later part of the season. They'll beat whoever. A&M at Ole Miss after that. Ole Miss coming off that win. Mississippi State at A&M. And they got Abilene Christian and LSU to end the season. So if they run the gauntlet, that is going to be very impressive. And they're going to be very highly ranked, obviously.
Bama got a tough stretch coming up. I mean, you got A&M, then you got Arkansas come to town, the Tennessee come to town, the LSU come to town, then they go to Kentucky.
Ooh. That's going to be a cold one. When is that? When is that Kentucky game, Corey?
November 11th.
It might be chilly up there. We went there last year around that time, and it was 14 degrees.
Then they got Auburn. Then they got Chattanooga. Then they have Auburn.
Oof.
Bama?
Two.
Oh, sorry. Bama could lose two games.
Yeah.
Bama could lose 2 games now.
Oh, very real. Yeah, that's why I think everything is up in there, right? If LSU gets back on track, Ole Miss controls their destiny as well.
That's why I'm looking at Ole Miss. They might take 2 L's though, because they lost to Alabama. They dang sure gonna lose to Georgia. They come in between the hedges.
That physicality kills that Ole Miss team, and I want to like them pretty bad. I'm a Lane Kiffin stan. I like Jackson Dart. Thought they got better on defense and obviously some transfer portals, but I feel like
I just think he don't do it. They don't. I feel like he's a great offensive minded guy. Don't get me wrong, Lane Kiffin is one of the best, but I just think he don't target the right people when it comes to recruiting. Like he getting more of skilled people. He think it's skilled people making the boat float, but it's actually made in the trenches. And Kirby sees that. Kirby understands that.
Totally agree with that.
Nick Saban understands that. Like the big dogs in the country, they dominate in the trenches.
Exactly.
Because they get to determine the game. You can't run the ball, so you got to throw it. I know what my guys know what you're going to do, so we always alert. We ain't worried about no rush. We're not worried about standing no run fits. We coming in to hurt. We can bring the guys. Our ears are back. And then if we can run the ball, we're going to be able to throw the ball. It sets up play action a lot more. So I think no disrespect to Lane Kiffin. I just think they got to get stronger in the trenches for his scheme to be even at his top peak.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the challenge. That's one of the best teams have that, like you're saying, Bacarri. That's what they have. It's not easy to get. So you like what do you like in the West? You like Georgia in the East.
I want to say after this weekend, man, I want to see how LSU, not LSU. I want to see how, because it's crazy. It's so because LSU is 2-1 in the conference.
Yeah, they just got that loss to FSU and the Ole Miss. So everybody has.
So if they win out and Ole Miss loses, if they win out, Ole Miss isn't gonna win out over Georgia.
More than likely,
I think Georgia. Yeah, more than likely, God's will. LSU still in it. Because if they beat Bama, if they end up playing Bama, don't they play? Yeah, they play Alabama. If they end up beating Bama, they can still be in it. I want to say after this weekend, if Texas A&M makes some noise and they show me something against Alabama, I would say A&M and Georgia.
Heard that. A&M Georgia, Bama Georgia, 2 of those. We like it, guys. That's why we love college football, especially in the SEC. And I'm glad we have some shakeup, honestly. This is becoming really interesting. It's going to be a great end to the season, a lot of big games, and that's what we're here for. But Georgia has to get it done between the hedges on Saturday, 7 o'clock kick. I'll be on ESPN. It's going to be a great game, fellas. I appreciate you guys jumping on. Already, as always, Bacarri, thanks for joining us, man. We really enjoyed you having us, you jumping on and describing you're the great Arthur Lynch, the barber. And one thing else I say about Bacarri before we leave here is he's still the only player to ever intercept Aaron Rodgers twice in one game. So props to you there, Bacarri.
Oh man, thanks. I think somebody else might have done that this past year. Yeah, man, it sucks, but hey,
one of two
records are made to be broken.
Hey, Rambo, man, I just want to say I love you, brother. It's so good to see you.
Right.
So good seeing you virtually. I hope I see you in person soon, but
I
love you,
more, man. Hey, if you ever down here in South Florida, man, you need to work on your tan or something, man. Holler at me. I'm down here in South Florida. Take you out there on the golf course.
Well, if you can't tell, I can always work on my tan. You know what I mean?
Hey.
I'm a little pale, but I just want you to know, man, I love you to death, brother. It's so good seeing you.
I love you too, bro. You know how to find me, man. Let's link up.
All right, we will.
And if we're playing golf, you got to invite me because I'm gonna kick y'all's ass. So, see
yeah. Well, good luck.
That ain't fair, then. That's not fair.
See y'all.
All right, gentlemen. We'll talk soon.